Hi, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone is staying safe with their family and having a fresh morning. My name is Fan, and I work on the ventures team at Plug and Play. Today, welcome to join our virtual event, a webinar focusing on how new technologies can help companies to save costs and improve efficiencies, particularly at this tough moment. This will be a series of 3 webinars, and today will be the first one. I will share more details with you in a second, but first of all, let me share with you today's agenda. Today, we will start from 8 a.m. After the opening remarks, we will have our friend Joe from Area to chat with my colleague Mark about how AR, VR can help companies to enable their employees to work and collaborate remotely. Afterwards, we will have 6 startups that we carefully selected from our ecosystem to present how they can help companies to save budget in different ways, mostly focusing on the operations side. For each of those startups, we will have 3 minutes for the team to present and 2 minutes for Q&As. So please feel free to raise your hand and ask if you have any questions. Okay, that's the agenda for today. Before we jump into the fireside chat, I would like to take this opportunity to make a very quick and high-level intro about us, Plug and Play, as I believe there are some new audience who haven't worked with us before. So what is Plug and Play? Basically, we are a global VC and corporate innovation platform that connects different parts, from corporate partners, startups, VCs, governments, to universities, to form the largest innovation ecosystem in the world. As of today, we have more than 400 corporate partners from different countries and different industries working with us in our 30-plus global offices. By working with us, partners get access to the latest technologies, best entrepreneurs, and the largest startup network in the world. We have about 25,000 startups in our network. With these technologies, our corporate partners can keep being innovative and easily maintain their competitive advantages. For the startups, they can find their early adopters and customers here on the platform. Aside from the collaborations that we facilitate between our corporate partners and the startups, we also make investment as a VC. On average, we make about 300 deals every year. Besides our data engagement efforts, we also run accelerator programs in most of our global offices to offer opportunities to our corporate partners and startup friends to have a deep engagement in a relatively short time. As you can see from the slide, we have covered startups from 15 different verticals, such as fintech, insurtech, mobility, and supply chain. So that's pretty much about us. Feel free to ask if you are interested in learning more. I'd be very happy to share more offline. Now let's move to the core topic of today's session, cost saving. Why are we interested in cost saving? This is not something new, but we have received so many requests from our corporate partners recently asking for technologies that can help them save budget and can be implemented in a relatively short time. It should not be difficult to understand cost saving will be the new normal for the next 2 years. As we can see, our economy has been heavily hit by COVID-19. After receiving those requests, we started to think about what technologies can help in this situation. And we eventually came up with some technologies that can help companies to save budget from 3 aspects: by improving operational efficiency, by replacing labor, and by making more data-driven decisions. Today, we're going to focus on the first approach, which is using AR, VR, and computer vision to improve operational efficiency. To demonstrate the potential use cases, we have invited 6 startups to explain how their technologies can help companies to achieve their goal. Feel free to mark down the dates of the other 2 webinars, as you will find more ways to reduce your cost. Last but not least, some housekeeping items. Please remain muted during the session and feel free to submit questions by using the Q&A button during the 2-minute Q&A session after each presentation. So let's get started. First, we will have Joe from Aerial to join our colleague Mark to share with us how Aerial can help with remote working using their advanced AR, VR technologies. After that, my colleague Noreen will be emceeing the presentation sessions. Let's give a virtual but big applause to welcome Joe from Aerial and my colleague Mark to the Fireside Chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Fan, and thank you everyone for being here this morning. Looks like we have a pretty healthy number of folks on the line, and certainly excited to kick it off with our friend Joe from Ario and kind of talking about what the latest is in AR and VR for industrial applications. I think, Joe, if you would start your video and camera, I think we'll get off to the races here.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yep, we're good. Perfect. And I think I just want to kick this off, a little brief introduction on my end. My name is Mark. I'm here with our plug and play team on the venture side. And, I focus on mobility and industrial technology alongside my colleague Fan, who was just talking earlier. And, really excited to hear from you, Joe. Maybe you can give a little bit of background on yourself and about Ario.
Yeah, so my name is Joe Weaver, CEO and founder of Ario. So we're a startup. We were founded in 2016. We specialize in augmented reality for enterprise, where we're helping enterprises build a platform and integrate AR into their daily operations. So we help enterprise really focus on digitizing their information and then using AR to bring their information spatially. So that way it's easier to interact with and building a better way to communicate within these industrial environments.
Awesome. And I think, maybe just to set some baselines and understanding for the group, I'm curious as to where you see the slider between AR and VR, and maybe in like a cost savings mindset, what some of the benefits of both technologies are, or maybe even considering mixed reality and some of the other nuances in the spectrum.
Yeah, so I've been in the AR VR space for 15 years now, and it's definitely evolved, from like the early adopters where we were first doing, AR with military, and even 15 years ago, it showed a lot of potential. But I would say in the last 5 years, it's got really to the point where now it's being adopted more broadly and commercially. So when it comes to cost savings, I look at, VR is great for planes, trains, and automobiles, where it's really great for that simulating those digital environments remotely and more efficiently. When it comes to AR, really the value proposition for that is on the job training. So taking all that virtual benefits and then bringing that to the actual work site, to the actual people training and operating on the daily basis. So really, it's kind of two foundational technologies where you see a lot of use cases in VR for digital training. And then how do you transition that digital training to actual operations? And that's where I think augmented reality bridges that gap from the virtual world to the actual real world.
Gotcha. And I think, something when we think about like AR and maybe surfacing a lot of that data and digital information, as you mentioned, I personally am not exactly familiar with where all the information comes from. So, curious as to the kinds of systems that you have to integrate to make these kinds of solutions work. And I guess the effort that might take from, for example, a client of yours.
Yeah, so we see, there's kind of a couple of trends happening. IoT, where a lot of things within these plants are communicating to the internet. Within the next 5 years, 1 billion plus things will be connected to the internet. So that becomes a really big interface problem. How do we consume all that information? How do we connect that information so that way humans can interact with it? And that's where I really feel that AR is going to be that bridge where you'll be able to point your phone or tablet or even wearable, be able to just innately be able to interpret what it's looking at and convey that information. When we see companies transition, you kind of have two approaches. They already have a lot of data. So if you look at these companies, they traditionally have SAP, Oracle, Siemens. So the first thing we help them do is transition that data spatially, and then we add new layers of information that they not necessarily have today as far as video content, 3D model content, interactable video chat. Those are things that additional layers that we see over the information they already have. But really the first step is transitioning all the 10, 30, 40 years of information they have digitally to that new realm of AR, VR.
Gotcha. And would you, I guess, like in my mind, it sounds to me like that's kind of what differentiates these kinds of fully integrated solutions from maybe what in the early days AR was perceived as more like a little bit gimmicky. I hesitate to say that, but something where maybe it wasn't so fully integrated as to be powerful enough for like enterprise applications, I guess. Is that where like the backend data integration and working with all the historical data kind of comes in?
Yeah, so I think that as this technology progressed, a lot of it was just initial pilots where companies tried AR to see what ROI it would have, but that doesn't necessarily scale too easily. So in these environments, they've already invested a lot of money and time into their process and procedures. What they're looking for is new ways to interact with it and better ways to interact with it at scale. So even though AR has been really promised as a game changer, it hasn't really transitioned to the masses effectively because it's traditionally very hard to develop or bring these things to market. So at ARIA, we really focus on kind of 4 things to transition something from a pilot to actual production. The first thing is in making something very simple. So if you're 16, to 60, it has to be able to operate and work, within that age range. So all workers that potentially can use the platform. The second thing is security. That's something that in enterprise is very keen as far as, how do I make something secure? If I'm pointing my phones or tablets at something, how do I protect the information that it's capturing? Also, how do I protect the information, on the back end and the front end? The fourth thing we've really looked at is scalability. So how do I transition something from, instead of just 10 employees to thousands of employees? And that's where wearables have kind of fallen short, where a lot of companies have adopted wearables, at a small scale, but it really hasn't transitioned to mass adoption throughout all companies yet. In the next 5 years, we can kind of see that progressing, but it's still the early phases where phones and tablets now have this AR capability, and we're seeing where that can now enable these new experiences. And the last thing we really focused on was sharing. So being able to connect information, share chat, share images, share videos, and really build that content is really where that ROI, that value stream starts actually being implemented by augmented reality.
Gotcha. And before, I just want to jump in here quickly for the audience. Feel free to submit questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end of this conversation. So excited for that as well. But I guess to touch more on mass adoption, do you think that there's been that kind of lag also comes from these kinds of solutions maybe not surfacing the right kinds of information or the right kinds of context for there to be action taken, like in an enterprise use case? Or where is that kind of breakdown for adoption coming from?
Well, I think it's traditionally building AR, it was a very complex process. You had to hire developers, you had to go build complex, content, and really what this holy grail of seeing like all this 3D animations, all this stuff. Most of these enterprises don't have any 3D content to even begin with. Either the OEMs or the manufacturers hold all that information. So what we've seen is that the fastest way to adopt this stuff is kind of take an approach where, how do I gain value? And that's really, for us, been showing, that pathway of saying, okay, we're going to give you a tool to create content. We're going to give a tool to manage content, and then we're going to give a tool to help communicate. And all those 3 things together are enabled by the end user to manage content, build content. And it can be as simple as just creating videos and having it spatially waiting for the worker. That's, very fast compared to like 3D modeling, which could take, countless hours or some level of expertise that might not drive enough ROI or value fast enough within these enterprises.
Gotcha. And I guess maybe, thinking in returning more to the cost saving lens, for this whole series, but where do you see, your tool and AR in general improving cost savings for like industrial use cases? Is it more on saving time in certain processes, just making people more efficient in general? How would you kind of characterize that?
Yeah, so I think it kind of falls into 2 buckets. One of the buckets is that digital transformation and helping build, the skills gap. So how do I transition new employees faster? So, over the next, 5 years, you're looking at 25% of the industrial workforce eligible for retirement. So with that, you're going to have to enable new tools to empower the new workforce. So we've seen where, not only looking at how do I take my processes digital, but how do I also future-proof myself? So that way, whenever wearables are ready, that information is spatially contextualized and presented to my employees. But that's one kind of area where AR can help transition that skills or capture that knowledge and then store it in a way that's spatial, that can be conveyed to more workers faster and more efficiently. The second thing we've seen really is reducing downtime. So in these companies, downtime is very measurable ROI, sometimes between $1,000 to $22,000 a minute. So any ways that you can help reduce downtime by communicating more effectively, or by being able to understand information faster and better and more efficiently with the workforce you have, really helps drive down ROI. And those two are the areas that we've seen where, as far as problem statements, really transition where AR, VR can help transition and really drive ROI.
Gotcha. And I think you've touched on wearables a few times here. In my mind, these kinds of solutions, as you mentioned earlier, are driven by, recent developments in cell phones and mobile devices. Where do you see wearables kind of coming into that picture? I'm curious.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of research with different customers and military in the past with wearables. Everybody wants to be hands-free and have that experience, but it's just not mass adoptable yet. So, a good example is, if Apple's not doing it, it's probably not ready for the mainstream. So the instant, one AR is ready as a wearable, I believe it's just going to take off like a wildfire. And there's really good signs that, in the next 5 years, that's going to be, an interface that will transition the world, the same way iPads and iPhones transitioned how we communicate and how we interact with the web and the next internet. That's kind of where we see it going. But right now, phones or tablets are state of the art. You have this year iPads with LiDAR being mass deployed, which is amazing to think that you can buy a tablet now that has 3D sensing capabilities built into it that works phenomenal. So as this technology evolves, we want to be wearables, but we want to build a path that's reasonable or makes sense to consumers.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll probably touch on that in a second. I'm looking at the Q&A box. Excited to kind of get to that LiDAR integration to everyday kind of tools, I suppose. And maybe kind of a final question or something to touch on. Can you speak to a deployment with a particular customer or a situation in which there were those really tangible kind of ROIs in terms of cost savings from deploying REO's solution? Just kind of give an idea to the folks in the room here.
Yeah, so when we look at a pilot, you really want to justify ROI at the end of it. So a lot of the use cases where we've gone through from pilot to production is really understanding what value augmented reality can bring, but then also looking at what that transition from digital to actual production goes. So the first thing we try to do is work with like the low-hanging fruit. We try to look at some area within the production line that is having issues or large amounts of downtime, and then we try to use our platform to develop the procedures and bring that spatially to that piece of equipment, and then we really focus at the end of the pilot is capturing all the analytics. So that way we can go back and say to the end customer and say, all right, this is the metrics you had before REO, and here's the cost savings post. And if you can show, 35, 50% reductions in downtime, that's a huge value proposition to an end customer. When you talk, every minute is $1,000 to, $2,000 a minute. If you can go through a pilot and end of it and say, hey, in this 90-day pilot, for this one procedure that we implemented, we saved you, $35,000 per, changeover, or $35,000 per line downtime. And then you can easily extrapolate that math across the mass adoption of this, and you start getting to insane numbers of productivity increases for these end clients. So it really starts exciting them to see where adapting this technology very quickly can start really driving ROI in a meaningful and tangible way.
I mean, yeah, that sounds super awesome. And I think a question in terms of how these solutions are deployed, you know, having seen, I guess, like a few solutions on the predictive maintenance side, and, you know, generally talking to startups, there's always also a layer for kind of like management to view the results in real time. Since this is a tool for people on the ground, is there also a kind of a backend layer for REO that people who are maybe more on the administrative side can see and deploy and kind of target, you know, certain types of operations or certain types of tasks potentially?
Yeah, so that's really critical to building that case study or building that results of your pilot. So we have a web dashboard that lets you manage users, create content, manage content. So you can create tasking, you can create quizzes, then you can deploy those and do process changes and updates based upon the data you're getting from the mobile phones and tablets of the workers interacting with the platform. So that value proposition of being able to go back and look at, you know, how long those processes took, and then going and say, hey, on step 4, that was causing this, you know, weird, you know, data point where, you know, 90% of people were doing it in, you know, 30 minutes. And then we had 2 super experts that were doing it in 15. So how can I go back to those experts, capture their knowledge, and then reinforce the procedures to get that new cost benefit to expand that knowledge capture? So we really see where it's building those positive feedback loops, where first you need to capture the data, then you can start analyzing it to understand how to build those process improvements. But a lot of these companies, they maybe know how long processes take, but they don't necessarily know the minutia of what data points each individual step or each individual process can have implemented to increase productivity.
Yeah, or even like the cross workforce optimization, or kind of redistributing the knowledge, I guess, amongst different people to make things go faster. That sounds really neat. And I think we have a few more minutes here, and kind of going to jump into Q&A. So a reminder for folks on the line, feel free to continue posting questions through that Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. We have a question from Dan here, going back to LiDAR and kind of some of these new technologies included in devices. Yes, what impact do you think new LiDAR cameras and sensors on the next wave of phones and tablets will be? How can enterprise continue to leverage?
Yeah, so I you know, we've just got our hands on LiDAR about a month ago on the iPhone, on the iPads, and it really, it's building that magical moment where it just works. So for an end customer, you really want something that, you know, when it comes to AR, you know, if it works 25% of the time or 75% of the time, it's not ready for mass adoption or production. With LiDAR, it's really starting to get to that point where I can just have AR experiences where I can just point my tablet, and 100% of the time it will place that information where and when it's needed most. So that's where I think really where this technology, LiDAR, is really bridging that gap between having the user experience just seem flawless. And we've seen that in high-end devices, you know, with like Magic Leap and HoloLens, where you can just walk in a room and magically the AR virtual things are just there. And I think that's where we're going to be at with the new phones and tablets, is that these experiences are going to transition to that point where it traditionally, you know, took some time to place or interact with those experiences, to be instantly being able to, you know, walk in a room and your phone will interpret your environment to a level of understanding that will just seem to the end customer as just magically things are existing in your world, and there's no level of self-development or correction within the application to make those experiences feel better or more secure to the end customer.
For sure. And I'm sure on your end, as far as deploying these kinds of solutions, the more kind of native adoption and kind of developer tools, I'm sure that we've built out the kind of inclusion of this new technology will probably be really helpful to spin solutions up faster. And I think I'm curious here, it looks like you answered a question while we were talking, but do you think that not natural experiences with glasses are somehow hindering further adoption for large-scale AR industrial use cases, similar to kind of what we had with 3D TVs and lack of adoption there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the AR world for a long time, and I've been on the hype cycle of I have wearables, every one of them. The problem is that it's just not ready for mass consumption. It's a hard thing to say, because you really want that experience and you want to drive that experience for the customers down the road. But it's just one of those things that, it's difficult. People just don't have experience working with these things, developing to these platforms, and they're cost prohibitive. $2,000, $3,000 is just not something that can be easily procured or implemented within these organizations. So we've really took the approach of saying, okay, well, what drives value? It's really that spatial context. How you get it is really, now thanks to AR Core and AR Kit, Apple and Google devices have magically turned into the most advanced AR devices on the market, which overnight, is just amazing to think there's 1 billion plus devices that have this new capability. And people are just starting to scratch the surface of what this capability can start doing on the masses on the whole. So, and these experiences are feeling a lot easier to manage and update on things and devices that they already own or operate. So for us, we really see the future will be wearable, but realize that it's going to be something that, will be down the line. But we don't want to miss that future. And we most enterprises, they have, a 5-year mission. So we want to help them drive that vision of saying, when these devices are ready and when they're ready and mass adoptable, that your form factor will change, but your content and the information you've created will not. So that's where we see, that future vision being implemented.
For sure. And hopefully with Ario, the content and all that's created will already be there, ready to be leveraged. So sounds really great. I think, given that last question, that's about time for us, but I really appreciate your time, Joe. And this was a super great conversation and hopefully a good warm up for our audience and for the rest of the startups that are on the line today.
All right. Hey, thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Have a great one, Joe.
All right. Goodbye.
And I think with that, I will hand it over to my colleague Noreen, who's going to be leading us through the startup sessions and handling the Q&A. Just a quick reminder, throughout the startup sessions, you can also continue using that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mark and Joe, for that very interesting fireside chat. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did as well. So today I will be the MC for the first part of our cost saving series. I've been at Plug and Play for about 8 months, and I'm on the ventures team working in the energy space. So for the event today, we're focusing on cost savings surrounding AR and VR technologies, as well as operations monitoring. So the first half will focus on operations monitoring, and the second half will be followed by 3 startups in the AR VR space. So with that, we're going to kick it off with Cognac, and we have Vaughn's presentation to go first. So I'll let Vaughn take it away.
Error-prone, repetitive, dangerous, we could be the right solution for you. So in traditional machine vision, one has had to capture hundreds of thousands of images, then label these images, give it to data scientists to help build models, which can take weeks and months. In the Cognac case, we basically teach by example. So we only need a few hundred images to teach our system, right? So the key to our technology is teaching by example. So here in this case, what we have is a gear, which is a perfect part deemed by the customer. And so then on the right side, we only need about 20 or 30 images of this good part. And then on the right side, we have some images that have some defects, dings, scratches. Perhaps you can have some discoloration or a missing tooth. So we would teach our system by a subject matter expert what these defects look like. And then our system starts making predictions and helping build models. So our business is probably 85–90% industrial inspection, manufacturing inspection. And I'll talk more about these in a moment. But then we do also some things in safety and security, especially in the age of COVID-19 now, where we're doing some compliance-related activity, which I'll also talk about today. So in the industrial sector, then our businesses are transportation, in automotive, rail, in general industrial inspection steps for, say, logistics, warehouses, asset management, for packaging, kitting of parts and assemblies, and also with you know, the safety and security aspect, looking at PPE compliance and so forth. Now, we're camera agnostic, so we work with all sorts of cameras, and we have, as this illustration here, working with images that are still, line scan, video, X-ray, etc. All we need is a quality image from our customers to be able to process in our system. So this is a chart that kind of illustrates how our modeling works. Basically, x-axis is time, y is performance, and model accuracy. And in many, many cases, we're in the high 90s of model performance, which, again, our customers are using our data to make business decisions daily. So in this case here, we built, or over the images we captured, we built 763 models that were trained, of which 20 were meaningful to us, where these 20 blue dots represent the times where a new model was introduced into the system. So in a 1 week period, we went from 0% to 94.7% model accuracy. Sometimes we do this in a couple of days, other times it may take 2 or 3 weeks, but at the end, within a month, you are performing in the high 90s, even 100% accuracy. I want to show you some examples of things that we've done. So this is for Wayside inspection of trains, where we're identifying train cars, the writing on the side of the car, intermodal IDs, etc. Right? So every time we capture an image, we offer our level of confidence against the accuracy of what we captured. Here in this case, we say we're 98% sure that that's a tank car. This is a box car. Here we're reading the side of the intermodal. We're looking at things like rail lines. One of our customers owns 40,000 miles of rail lines, where we're working with them to make sure that, you know, they can prevent derailments, etc. So very strong application for us. In automotive, again, think of these as all different sorts of asset tracking and asset management. We can match tiles and wheels. We can look at the interior of a vehicle to make sure it was built properly. Here in automotive, again, there's a stamping process where we're making sure that we're detecting the splits that come off these side panels of the different vehicles that are being manufactured. Here for universal safety cabinet, we're looking at breakers, different sorts of you know, wires, missing parts, different colors, making sure that everything is connected properly before something ships to an end user. We also do some counting application here, where here there's a sprocket. One has got 45 teeth, one has got 46. In real time, we can count and provide this feedback in real time. We're heavily involved in kitting applications, to where in a given kit, you know, you have different sorts of instruments. You can check for the instrument presence or absence, the quantity, if an instrument is, you know, damaged, etc. Right? So this is just, again, an illustration of things that we would do. We do this quite a bit for automotive. And then also for warehouse management, you can take an image of the side of an entire pallet of boxes. Then you can go read the individual detail on that box to make sure that the, you know, the certifications are there and all the proper stamps are on the side, barcodes, etc. So that when a product goes to, you know, a customs office in a different country, that it's not being held up for non-compliance. Finally, in the age of COVID-19, we've had several companies come to us in the last month. And so we've already, you know, served in the PPE market, making sure that people have the protective gear, but now companies want to make sure that their employees are wearing the masks that have been provided. So we can certainly offer the solution as well, and wondering as to whether these sorts of challenges will be in your space as well. So just to close up on our presentation here, our technology is primarily a subscription-based solution. We have from cloud to on-prem, and a hybrid, which is kind of what most manufacturing companies subscribe to, which is the cloud core is where all the functionality occurs, teaching, verification, and so forth. And then you can push that down to an edge flow, an edge appliance, to where we run that application right at the edge, where we're literally also providing real-time response, right, under 1 second responsiveness. So the application can run primarily on the edge, and the cloud core is used for the teaching and verification component. So this is my contact details. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fahan. Are you, do we have you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. Well, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we have a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
First, I'd like to start with, what are your competitive advantages compared to other solutions?
Sure. So I think there are a few, right? Easy deployment, really easy user interface. At the beginning, the audio part wasn't working, but basically what we're doing is automating visual inspection tasks, right? So a lot of humans are doing these things. As rates increase, right, the number of images that you have to, inspection steps that you have, basically, you know, at a human level, you're not as accurate as what you could be with an automated system. So we're offering 95, 98, even 100% accuracy of a given inspection task, right? That's one advantage. The other is that we only need a few hundred images, not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands like traditional machine vision to inspect and teach our system. So at that rate, you know, with just a few hundred images, you're able to get it to a super high model accuracy. And again, this is our AI deep learning algorithm that we've developed that's being used, you know, has been used over the last 2.5, 3 years with customers.
Right, okay. Thank you for that. Another question we have is, how many cameras are required for the highest accuracy?
So it's not really related to number of cameras. It's really more, are you capturing an image that can tell the story, right? So within one given image, if you have a given kind of defect you want to look at, one may be enough. And so this is really up to the customer to give us an image for us to review. In some cases, I showed you the automotive panel, right, that's coming off a stamping line. That has 25 cameras, a 5x5 array. So each case is different. At the end, it's also, you know, how many angles you want to capture on a given image, right? So you have a part, you want to get around all different sides. You may need more cameras, or you could rotate the sample. So each is different in its case, but you can go from one to several.
Okay, thank you. So there's a couple more questions, so I'll just ask them before moving on. Can you check the fill levels in a box within a warehouse?
Absolutely, right? So you can create some sort of baseline, and as long as, again, the essence of our technology is teach by example. So if I have an example of a empty versus a quarter fill versus half versus something else, we can absolutely show that. Again, the key is having a good image to review.
Got it. Okay, and the last question here we have is, does the accuracy or training based upon the size of the item?
Not at all. No, it can be a very small item to a very large item. We're looking at sides of train cars moving at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. So accuracy has no correlation to the size of a sample that we'd look at.
Got it. Okay, well, we do have one last question, so I'll just ask you that as well.
Sure.
Is there any size limitation for the manufacturing inspection use case?
Size limitation from the perspective, I think that was just the last question as well, right? So
Yeah,
no, there is no size limitation at all.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Just wanted to ask everything that was in that chat box, make sure
Sure.
everyone got the answer. So thank you so much, Fahan, for being here.
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks. And by the way, my email address is wrong here. It's .co, not .com.
Oh, okay. And you can go ahead and put that in the chat box as well for all of the attendees to take note of.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Drishti. We have Dave presenting Drishti to us today. So hopefully that audio goes on smoothly.
Hi, my name is Dave from Drishti. You probably know that social distancing is the key to getting factories back to work. Today, I want to tell you about the problems our customers are having in getting their operations to run smoothly and efficiently in a time of social distancing, and what Drishti is doing using video analytics to help solve these problems. The good news is that factories across the world are getting back to work. The key concern, though, and rightfully so, is worker health. And this creates a new risk factor for manufacturers in the form of population density. Obviously, workers need to now stay at least 6 feet away from each other at a minimum, but factories are designed to optimize real estate. So this creates a new paradigm for manufacturing. It creates a critical new operating principle. The solution, of course, as you can see from these headlines, is social distancing. And social distancing is the right move, but it creates two major categories of problems, and I want to tell you very quickly about them. The first category of problems you're going to see is that social distancing is going to destabilize your processes. You're reducing your operator density, which means you have to learn new process steps. You're changing your line layout. You're adding steps before you pass the unit to sanitize things. You're going to disinfect before and after shifts, which is going to reduce the available work time. You're going to stagger your shifts, which might impact your materials flow. Of course, if anyone gets sick, everyone who came into contact with that person is going to go into quarantine, which is going to impact your workforce availability. And your operators are going to have new PPE requirements, which is going to reduce their dexterity. All of this adds up to problems in throughput, training, and quality. Now, typically when a line is destabilized, you turn to your indirect labor workforce, your supervisors, your engineers, your trainers, and your management to solve these problems. The problem is they can't get close to the line. So you're going to struggle conducting time studies. You're going to struggle doing root cause analysis. Your trainers will struggle building instructional content. Management won't be able to walk to the line. The centralized Kaizen teams you rely on can't fly in. And overall, collaboration and decision-making will be slowed, which means right when your lines get destabilized, your capacity to improve the line is severely constrained. So let me tell you how Drishti is solving this problem. We're providing remote visibility and insights from every station on the line. We install cameras that capture video of the process as it's being performed. We stream that video to the cloud where everyone on your team can access it. That includes engineers, supervisors, management, trainers, anyone who needs access to the data and the video can get it. And then we have dedicated apps that you use to improve training, to build training curriculums, for spot training, for process improvement, for making time studies, for identifying the root cause of defects, and much more. The impact of Drishti is that you can stabilize your line remotely without putting people on the line that risks your operator health. Let me give you an example of how the Drishti portal makes indirect labor a lot more efficient, even when they're remote. For example, this is our video search engine. You can use this to find the source of a defect almost immediately. Let's say you know there was a defect on March 5th on the first shift. Click on March 5th, click on shift 1, click on station 4, and there you go. Just like that, you've got video of all the cycles that happened on this station, on that day, at that time, and it's very easy to hunt down the one you're looking for. Once you know, finding countermeasures is simple. You don't have to spend 3 days on the line trying to figure out what happened. You can just go here and figure it out immediately. If you think this can help your factory, then the last thing you need to know is that we have a program that goes from deployment to ROI in just 8 weeks. Visit drishti.com/COVID to learn more. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Dave. Do we have you on the line with us?
Yeah, can you see me and hear me?
Yes, I can. All right, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we have a few questions for you today. We're going to start off with, how do you measure the improvements, and how quickly could you walk us through the ROI calculation?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say that you guys are all lucky because this is the first time in about 40 days I've worn a button-down shirt. So I'm dressing up for this one. So ROI, it depends on the problems faced by the line. So let me give you two examples. When we go to a tier 1 auto manufacturer, they're typically performing at very high levels of productivity. Their concern is quality, getting from 6 parts per million to 5 parts per million defect or lower. So for them, it's going to be the cost of quality. Now, this whole COVID thing throws it out the window, because they might go from 6 operators on the line to 3 operators on the line, in which case their question is, how quickly can they return to their production ratio? In other words, they have a theoretical production maximum. You totally disturb the process. The output, the actual production maximum is much lower. You got to get to as close to your theoretical maximum as possible. That requires a lot of people studying the line, measuring the processes, figuring out how to balance the work content, figuring out how to improve the process. And of course, if you have trouble getting people on the line, you're gonna have trouble doing that. So depending on the circumstance, the ROI is in quality. The ROI can be in productivity. The ROI is also in training duration or training acceleration. In this period, you're gonna see, a factory will furlough half their workforce. Only a quarter of it's gonna come back because other people have found new jobs or other situations have happened. You gotta train a bunch of new people. every day you take for training is a day you're not at full productivity when you're really screaming for full productivity. So training duration is another way you measure ROI.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. We also have a question. Can your solution be applied to public spaces, for example, this broader smart cities landscape, for example, for social distancing as we head into the new reality we all face?
Yeah, so we're focused on manufacturing environments, specifically discrete manufacturing assembly lines. There's nothing that stops us from putting cameras and doing the traceability tools in any situation. We don't have applications designed for those environments. In other words, we're a full stack solution. We have sensing, we have data creation, and we have apps that can be used by people on the factory floor. We don't have the apps for those other environments and the purpose-built apps. But that said, the data is there, and if there's a value to having it, then obviously that's a conversation worth having.
Definitely. Awesome. Okay. I think we'll end on one last question. Your video was pretty short, so you have a little extra time here. How many projects do you currently have ongoing?
Oh, I can't talk too much about that. What I can say is that we're working with, let's see if I remember correctly, 3 of the top 10 OEMs, auto OEMs, 2 of the top 6 tier 1 suppliers, and 3 of the top 5 electronics contract manufacturers. So we have worked or are working with a lot of the biggest brands in the world.
Awesome. Thank you. And before I let you go, I'm actually really curious about this. What does drishti mean?
Drishti is a Sanskrit word for vision.
Oh, wow. I should have known that. But thank you so much, Dave. And thank you for dressing up for the occasion. I know I appreciated it. And I'm sure everyone at home does as well.
Yep. Back to sweatpants.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you so much. Have a great one. And we'll follow up with your email to the panelists to answer the rest of the questions.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, the last part of our series, we have Rob presenting ATOLLOGY. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Rob Shaintaller, founder and CEO of ATOLLOGY, where we see data with our industrial vision platform. And we're excited to be part of Plug and Play's event today to help you improve industrial worker productivity and safety through the use of visual digital twins. So at ATOLLOGY, what we do is make what we call smart operations really simple for our customers. And we instantly create smart operations for them by visually digitizing and balancing all 3 of core industrial operational elements: people, equipment, machines, and vehicles, product and materials. We're generally working directly with the VP of operations, and they're able to quickly understand how we can both digitize and improve their physical operations. How does it work? Well, it's all a subscription-based solution. We come into their facility and we provide everything required to turn your operation into a smart operation. It's a very simple installation, about a day. We can do it, third party can do it. We're able to do it all completely remote, including both the site survey and the installation, so we don't need to visit your facility if you're shut down. It's turnkey hardware and software, all part of the subscription. There are no interfaces required to your existing systems, although we're happy to do them eventually. But we generate the big data for you, analyze it real time, and produce analytics for you to use to both remotely manage your facility as well as make continuous improvement. It's very non-intrusive, so there's no disruption or risk to your operations, and we typically install right while people are working. So here's an example of looking at the production floor. We've got a visual of the layout of the floor. In this case, it's press brakes. These are not the most exciting machines, but we easily digitize them by using our cameras to both look for very fine motions of the activity of a press brake every time the calipers move. And then we knit that together with information about the operator to provide what we call a composite view of the state of the operation. This allows our customers to monitor and manage from anywhere. In this example, we're looking at how to use this capability to do social distancing. So we're monitoring a more manual area here, and we're looking at the people in the different areas of the facility. Our customers have typically used this for real-time analysis plus actual labor costing of their operations. But now that we're releasing a feature where we can knit this together and keep track of whether or not there's no issue, we're safe social distancing, minor infractions, significant or severe, and put it over time so you can better understand if you're running your factory floor safely and not creating an unsafe environment for your workers. We want to get them back to work and stay at work. And if you have to close down to an outbreak, it kind of ruins all that. We also have a way to eliminate paper handling. Many of our customers are worried about third parties who may come drop off materials. We have an imaging station that requires people to not have to handle the paper together, drop it in, we scan it, we read things, order numbers, dates, etc. And it's one more way we can help improve social distancing. Moving through the facility, we help people analyze things like loading out trucks. You can look at dock door utilization. We're starting to look at things like trailer density and other things that help you make sure you're getting more efficiency out of your vehicles. And again, one more area of your operations we can help you manage remotely through vision. We also help out in yards as well, behind a factory, or in this case, an aggregate yard, where the whole purpose of the facility is to load out trucks. Here we're tracking vehicles as they move through the facility, keeping track of cycle time, creating a digital log of all that's happened. We don't care whose trucks they are because we use the license plates to identify them. They could be your fleet, third-party fleet, supplier, customer. We read old equipment to digitize things like scales, and we can also get a visual record of what was in the truck bed for documentation. Our customers use this to manage real time and then make changes that have delivered as much as a 29% reduction in the overall cycle time, saving everybody money with more efficient use of trucks. We also monitor for things like safety. In this case, a very dangerous activity on top of the truck. We capture little videos that let you look back, and we're now actually analyzing for PPE compliance as well as safe usage of that piece of equipment when they're up on top of the truck. Any of the things that we're monitoring can be alerted on with smart alerting. We can do very complex conditions. In this case, there's not supposed to be a driver outside when the truck is up. Send you an alert, push you an alert, again, helping with remote management, improving safety in your facilities. We have a variety of customers across a variety of industries. We released our first product back in February 2018, and we have our equipment running at over 50 facilities with 750 edge devices collecting data continuously. US, Canada, Germany, UK. We've even been in Dubai, so we can kind of go anywhere. Happy to be part of Plug and Play. Actually, we've been selected for 5 different batches so far. We work with AWS. We were part of StartX. As a matter of fact, the facility I'm in here behind me is a demonstration center sponsored by the US government, actually, through the Smart Manufacturing Institute. And we are still open for business, considered essential. So I'm able to record this from our office today, which I'm quite proud of. So anyway, we look forward to talking to you more about how ATOLLOGY might help you improve the productivity at your operation. Thanks, and I look forward to talking to you.
Do I have, I think I have Rob on the line with me today, or Deb?
Rob will talk since I did the video. So.
Great, thanks, Rob. Thank you for the video, and also a little jealous that you got to be in your office.
Yes, I get out occasionally. It's very nice.
Excellent. That makes one person in the world these days. Okay, so our first question we have for you is, can you share a little bit more about the customers and their use cases, and also what they do after getting the insights that you provide them?
Yeah, so generally our goal is improving throughput. So some of the other folks might be more focused on part quality, et cetera. We're really looking at overall operational throughput, factory floor, more parts per hour, increasing OEE in a trucking yard, more trucks per hour, right? So generally improving throughput. And generally what we help them find are the bottlenecks and or wasted time. So for example, on a factory floor, we have an out-of-the-box metric called ignored machine time, which doesn't make, like, what is that? Well, because we're watching people, equipment, materials, we have a metric that tells you how often there is something that needs a human, but there is no human to be seen. And it's really usually one of the initial metrics people focus on, improving the response time to unproductive conditions. A lot of folks focus on broken machines. We're in a lot of environments where if you Pareto downtime, unplanned maintenance is really low on the list, right? So we're in environments that are a mix of equipment, materials, and people. So identifying bottlenecks and kind of idle time, and using our real-time system to reduce the response time to those conditions. And then they use our trend analytics to make changes to the flow over time to get continuous throughput improvement.
Can you speak a little bit to the privacy around the data that you collect and how you manage it?
Yeah, there's kind of 2 parts. There's confidentiality and there's privacy, right? So confidentiality is treating the data as business confidential data. Our entire architecture is designed to treat everybody's data as their data. And then there's privacy. Now think about the workers on the floor. You may have seen during the video, we kind of had the default setting is the big blue obfuscation box. It's a customer choice based on your work environment. But by default, we are not capturing anything personally identifiable about the people doing the work. But we're GDPR compliant in Germany and the UK. So we've been able to do that not only with the system, but at the edge, and have so far been able to comply with any law we've been up against in one of these industrial facilities.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the presentation and also answering those questions. We will have to move on to the next startup just to keep in time with the scheduling. But thank you so much, Rob, for being with us today. And I hope you're staying safe and sound, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the chance. Bye-bye.
All right, for the next part in the series, we are going to start with AR and VR technology now for the next 3 startups. So hopefully you guys are ready and excited to hear about how virtual reality is coming into play. So with that, we're going to start with Striver with Langston here today. So hopefully you guys enjoy his presentation.
Hey everyone, I'm Langston Johnson from the business development team at Striver, and thank you for taking the time to join us on this webinar under less than optimal circumstances. I recognize that people might have some background knowledge on virtual reality training, but for the sake of this presentation, I'm just going to pretend that everyone is starting from scratch. So one of the classic technologies to help a person get better at their job and probably the most cost-effective training technology ever created is this, the flight simulator. New aspiring trainees or seasoned pilots practice flying planes, takeoffs, landings, in-flight emergencies without the risk of killing anyone or crashing a multi-million-dollar asset from the safety of a simulator. So with these virtual reality headsets, which are like a flight simulator for enter XYZ job, operations, safety, learning and development, and HR leaders can help improve the performance of their teams by transporting them into the actual situation they'll be working in. At Striver, we call this immersive learning and define it as a groundbreaking training methodology that combines the sense of presence of virtual reality with advanced learning theory, data science, and spatial design. Traditionally, leaders have had to significantly weigh the cost of preparing employees from a monetary, safety, and physical resources standpoint, and they had to decide if they would go with a more scalable approach or a more effective approach. If they decided on scale, they'd use online videos, or if they wanted to have a more interactive session, they teach employees in a classroom. But now, with immersive learning, that trade-off is virtually eliminated because operations leaders get the same effectiveness of one-to-one training with the scalability of online e-learning videos. So now, to implement immersive VR training at an organization, there are 7 steps. The first step is strategy. Being that we're an end-to-end solution platform, we spend a lot of time in the strategy phase finding the right business challenge that can be addressed with virtual reality training. And those challenges usually deal with ride situations that are rare, impossible, dangerous, or expensive to train people on. So a quick example is an active shooter training. Obviously, we hope this never happens, but you sure want your people to know how to handle themselves to stay safe. Watching a video or having a manager simulate that situation won't cut it, and the T&E of sending people to an offsite simulation would be incredibly high. When the training employee puts on a headset, they feel like they're actually in the situation and can go through the experience that they would be going through in that crazy active shooter over and over and over again with that same level of realism that they would experience in the real world. Then step 2, our instructional designers use the latest learning theory to design the right curriculum to translate your business's knowledge into a VR experience. Next, we produce the content, which is like making a mini movie. Be surprised how much goes into 10 seconds of work. And then we work with your infrastructure to make sure the physical setup of the training works, having some IT fun and things like that. And finally, we deploy the training and collect usage data like tracking head movement and how they perform their task and other measurable things. So that is Striver and an end-to-end immersive learning VR training overview. I hope that was helpful and be glad to have a more in-depth conversation now or when the time is right on your end. Thank you and continue to be safe.
Thank you so much, Langston. Are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am. Hey, Noreen.
Hi, Langston. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Excellent. Can you hear
Okay,
us?
cool. Yes.
Okay,
We're good.
great. So I'm going to start with our first question here is how long does it take to complete the full setup from strategy to curriculum design to content creation to the final rollout? And does that vary a lot?
Yes, so usually if everything is going smoothly, it's about a 4 to 6 month process. And to be candid, most of the times that it extends beyond that is because our customers just have a lot of process things that they have to do on their end to make sure, you know, obviously some legal implications, making sure there's right executive sponsorship. Because as I'm sure we all know, executives really drive the bus on this. And so making sure there's executive alignment and that we're aligning with a specific use case, but then can expand that at scale that will touch as many employees as possible. Now that's kind of where the big ROI comes from, is either hitting a high number of employees that go through the training, a different high number of different locations, and or really specific impact in a specific way. That's usually where we see the ROI on that front.
Got it. Thank you. And our last question here is, can you speak a bit more about the time to proficiency cost savings, the cost savings Striver helps to generate?
Yeah, so that's the time to proficiency seems to be like the biggest known ROI that our customers see. So if you can, so for example, Walmart, one of our big customers, if they're employing some new equipment, so like a new self-serve kiosk, before they would have to send a trainer, spend about 8 hours preparing somebody to use that equipment. And now with VR and using our platform, they've cut that down to about a 20-minute training module where now they just send out the equipment, send out the headset along with that, and they've cut their training costs significantly. So the people that are in the L&D and actually facilitating, designing the training, they're still able to do that, but then they don't have to, you know, send everyone across the country, and they're seeing, you know, the ROI on that front. The other thing in terms of time savings is also from the onboarding side. So if you can cut down training and make it more immersive and more engaging, that people are going to learn more. And we all know learning by doing is going to be the best way for people to learn, but VR is that next step below where that's a scalable solution versus having to take people off the line, make sure that they know how to use equipment properly. It's going to be a more effective way because you're going through that same step-by-step progression that you would in real time, but in VR, and they get that same style of retention and stickiness that you get.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. It's definitely true. We're all in the virtual reality now, so we're all finding our footing. Thank you so much. And well, thank you for your presentation today and your time. Yeah.
Thanks, Noreen.
So next up, we're going to have Antony with Immersive present.
Hi, this is Antony Westerinen. I'm the CEO of Immersive, and we do digital twins from any space, fast, cheap, and easy. And I wanted to show you 2 short videos to introduce the solution and the technology. And first is the process itself. The process is simple. It is 3 pieces: map the space, augment it, and then experience it. And mapping means that you take images, photos on your normal smartphone of the space, whether outside or indoor, and then you bring those to our cloud service, which then makes the digital twin or the map out of it. Then you bring the map into Unity or Unreal or some other graphics platform, where you then add the virtual elements into it to create the augmented reality experience. And then once the app is published, you just open the app and then view it through your glasses or through your device. The device again, normal smartphone, and the applications within the app can be indoor navigation, games, etc. And then I'll show you what you can do in industrial environment with this technology. So you can tie the industrial information at your power plant, your oil refinery, paper mill, or whatever, to the actual process equipment and process parts, and not to the device. And you can go and navigate to the specific sites in large spaces, troubleshooting in real time at the place where it needs to be done, work remotely, and actually also control the elements that you need to control of the process and see the process variables visualized in front of your eyes and not needing to go back to the control room or other place where the information would otherwise be visible. So that's basically the initial introduction to Immersal. Now I'm more than happy to take any questions, comments, and try to answer those. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Antoni. Are you on the line with us today?
Yes, I am.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for that presentation. So our first question that we have for you today is this all self-serve? And how difficult or easy is it to set it up for the first time?
The mapping, when you create a digital twin, is fairly straightforward. We have really intuitive guides and tutorials on our website, and you do it on your smartphone. The first map you can create in just a couple of minutes. You need to download the Mapper app from App Store or Play Store, and then just start it. And after you've done the map, then just create an account with us, and then you can also download the map and try it on Unity or Unreal and create the necessary content into it. So it's really fast, really simple to make the first steps.
Got it. Okay, are there any requirements for the headset and the device that the user uses? I'm sorry, Antoni, are you still with us? Can you hear me? Oh, no, I think that we might have lost him. Well, we might just have to send that question to him separately. I'll give him about 10 seconds. Yeah, all right, sorry about that. We'll have to send that to Antoni separately. Thank you so much, if you can hear me, Antoni, for your presentation. And we're gonna move on to our last startup for the event today. We have Michael with Visual IX to talk about his computer vision technology that they have.
I'm one of the founders and CEO of Visual IX. I would love to tell you shortly about our company. Our product is the Visual IX mapping and localization software development kit for large-scale augmented reality. Our company is on the market for almost 3 years. It's the third version of the Visual IX SDK. We've won a number of prestigious awards in our space. When it comes to cost cutting, we identify 3 major sectors: automation, so enabling robotics solutions, enabling forklifts, enabling workers in factories. The second category is navigation, so navigation in retail stores, navigation in malls, navigation museums, navigation in hospitals. And the third category is maintenance, inspection, so industry 4.0 space, construction space. We have a couple of very exciting applications that have been built using the Visualix SDK. Since we have very little time, I would love to focus only on one thing today. I would love to tell you how we're different than others. So differentiation. So we say we have a significantly larger scale. You can map faster, you can map easier, you just take a video, you don't take any pictures. It's very robust, meaning that there can be people in front of you, it's still gonna work, and it's more accurate. So that makes a huge difference. In 10 to 15 minutes, you can map a mall. We support iOS and Android devices, but we could also support AR glasses or HMDs. As I mentioned before, our solution is already implemented in some robotic solutions. You can very easily create maps in real time by just taking a video with a mobile phone camera. So that's very easy. Our solution is server-side driven, so devices don't heat up. It's extremely efficient, and you can relocalize pretty much everywhere. So after you mapped a space, you can localize everywhere. You know where you are, and you see the persistent content in front of you. City scale or planet scale is possible, and our solutions are patent pending. So we have a number of patent pending technologies used by the Visualix SDK. So it's we want to make it very clear why the Visualix SDK is the way to go. And very shortly, a couple of examples. You can see a 2D map. You can see a last mile delivery case, navigation. You can see a multiplayer experience. You can see outdoors and indoors. You can see the robustness with lots of people in a mall, and you can see a robotic solution where we are mapping a very, very large warehouse in Industry 4.0 settings. Thank you very much for attention. Again, Visualix, the Visualix mapping and localization SDK for large-scale augmented reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that presentation, and thank you for being with us today. So
thank you
for wrapping us.
Very much.
Definitely. So we have a question for you from our audience. Can you talk more about your pilot projects in terms of cost, project timeline, and success metrics?
Definitely. So we had a couple of very exciting projects. One with a warehouse where we've been able to map a 20,000 square meter. I have a lot of information from different people. I have to turn it off. One very interesting case was a 20,000 square meter warehouse with 200 machines. We've been able to reduce the time to fix problems in those machines by 30%. And the navigation time by almost 50%. So that was a navigation from one place to another. Another very interesting case was onboarding in a retail store. So you have new employees in a retail store and they don't know the exact layout of the space. And we've been able to optimize the time. We don't have the exact numbers here, but the customers have been very happy about this. We've been able to do the entire CES. In Las Vegas, we've been able to map CES. We've been able to map MWC. I mean, we did lots of demos. So that has been very successful. We had a couple of implementations in Edge, and that's very interesting. We had, so during CES, we had an Edge implementation, and that allowed us to have a large-scale augmented reality experience, 10,000 square meter experience for, that was around 40 people. So back then, it was 1.5 years ago, that was very interesting. We have a couple of telecoms. We are the winners of the 5G Summit. So our application is pretty much a perfect application for the future of 5G. So you can imagine you would be able to have outdoor and indoor parties, remote work applications and all sorts of applications using 5G. And then you've seen a couple of those examples where we do navigation. So that's a pure navigation for consumers. So you've seen a couple of those pictures. So we have a number of those projects. The main customer of Visualix these days is a software company, and the software company building AR solutions. And we give them the SDK and they integrate it into their apps. So this is that's how it works currently.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that very extensive answer. And I think you addressed a lot of the next questions as well. So I'm going to stop you there and thank you so much for your presentation today. And I also give you a chance to wrap up. So I'll thank everyone in the audience with us today as well for being here. A huge thank you to all the startups for presenting and taking the time to join us, as well as all of the attendees. And I hope you all can join us again next week on Tuesday for the second part of the series on automation, focusing on robotics, predictive maintenance, and rapid prototyping. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our CEO, Candice, to speak more about Plug and Play. And thank you all again.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and fantastic job. Thank you to all the startups for presenting. I just wanted to do a quick update on our activities here at Plug and Play. We have launched a new pop-up virtual accelerator focused on ending COVID-19. And so essentially what we want to do is we want to protect the lives and livelihoods of those affected by COVID-19. And we want to do that by connecting platform partners, so corporations, governments, foundations, venture capitalists, and of course, startups together to bring new technology to market. If you go to our website, you can reach us at plugandplaytechcenter.com/COVID-19. There you can see all of the webinars, including today's webinar, recorded. We have startup lists, etc. For our partners, we're really looking for those who can work with us to work on proof of concepts and pilots over the next 8 to 16 weeks with our startups. And we are actively working to connect startups with our platform partners to do that. We're looking at 4 different tracks. One track would be healthcare, looking at telemedicine, looking at symptom checkers, population outbreak management, technologies like that. Looking at enterprise technology, everything you saw today, intelligent process automation, using computer vision to monitor social distancing in a factory setting or a warehouse or a hospital emergency room, for example. Looking at supply chain technologies, last mile and delivery and fulfillment technologies. A lot of our partners are dealing with softening demand, so looking at consumer signals. And so we're looking at a whole variety of technologies, but if you're interested, please do join us. Again, you can reach me. I'm Candice Widows. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Plug and Play. You can reach me at candice@pnptc.com or on our website, pnptc.com/COVID-19. Thank you again, and guys, have a great day and stay safe, stay healthy.